Hey guys, James from SIKKY Manufacturing. On this episode of the BMW E30 turnkey build, we're going to get the headers installed and button up some of the fuel system. On the E30 chassis, there's three lines coming to the engine compartment. You have a feed, return, and an evap line. It's optional what you do with the evap. You will need to relocate it on the LS swap due to its location is right in the way of basically the brake hydro boost. You could probably get away with it if you were running a booster delete, but either way, it's up to you. You can either vent to atmosphere or relocate this canister and then hook it up with a new line. In this particular application, we're going to vent to atmosphere. Cha-ching! First step, we're going to get these factory lines out of the way. Uno. Dos. On the factory lines, the one to the front is the feed and this one is the return. Alright, since there's an all-in-one filter regulator provided in the SIKKY kit, we no longer need the factory fuel filter. So we're going to remove this panel and eliminate this factory fuel filter on the E30 just by bypassing it with a hose. You can see this line is in pretty bad shape, pretty dry rotted and cracked up, so good thing to get that out of there. Definitely a future leak. Wish it was lit in the way. Alright, so now we're going to hook the return line up, which is the rear line. Slide the clamp down and tighten it up. Alright, now we're going to take the feed line to the filter. Again, route it the same way around the shock tower, under the fuse box, and down to the forward factory hard line. Alright, for our installation, we chose to mount the filter right here in front of the shock tower. There is enough line provided in this kit where you do have a lot of freedom as far as location to mount it, so it's really up to you. In our particular case, we need to shorten these lines a little bit to mount the filter in this location, but like I said, the kit's provided with extras, so you can mount it where you want. We're going to take our return line, which goes on this middle fitting. Typical torque with AN fittings, you just want to get it tight by hand, and then you're really just doing like 1/8 of a turn to 1/4. Now we move on to the next line. It's a little tight in here, so get that started. Alright, so now we're going to take the quick disconnect OEM style fitting that's provided in the SIKKY kit and pop it on. You should hear it click, and then if you pull back on it, it can't move. There's an O-ring basically that makes that connection so it will spin and move around a little bit, and that's normal. And attach this line. Alright, so now we're going to get the headers installed. As you can see, the motor and transmission are in the car at the moment, but we did take the motor mounts off. There's a couple different ways to get these headers in. Sometimes you can do the method of putting the driver's side header on the engine and transmission, setting them in as one. You still have to do the aligning of the steering shaft after it's installed. Or you can do what we're doing in this situation where we got the engine and transmission in, we've got a jack on the crank pulley and a jack on the actual transmission, so the engine's literally movable and rocking in here, which allows you the room to get the headers in on each side. I'd recommend starting on the driver's side because of the extra clearance needed to get it in and around the steering column. So we're going to go ahead and slide this one down and use the SIKKY provided gasket and hardware. So you get it in position, rock the motor over a little bit, drop it down in, and get one of the bolts started. Go to the back, get one started on the back side. Alright, so now we're going to tighten them up, starting in the middle, and then just work your way out to either end. Basically that just makes sure that the flange gets torqued down evenly. Now being that we're working on a BMW and they're made in Germany, we're going to use German torque specs on this thing and make sure they're good and tight. Tilt the motor back a little bit. Work your way down in. Once you get it close, grab the gasket supplied with the headers. The motor's still loose. We're going to get the motor mounts back in position. So you're going to align it with the subframe first. So now we got the motor mounts tight, we're going to use this pull jack to raise the Bruce Jenner up into position and tighten down the nuts on the cross member. Alright, so now we're going to take the steering shaft. We got both the joints are lined up, ready to go. We're going to slide this up into the upper joint and then drop it down into the bottom joint. Alright, so that's a wrap on this episode. Make sure you subscribe, click on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode.